was supposed to be a quiet rollout. Just a simple filming day, a few laps, some photos, and done. But what happened at Silverstone? As Checo Perez fired up Cadillac's 2026 Formula One car for the first time, was anything but routine, because the engine didn't start right away. There were whispers in the garage, and delays that lasted longer than anyone expected. And when the car finally moved, people noticed something odd, something in the behavior, something in the sound. And after the test, Checo didn't say much, but the little he did say was enough to raise alarms back in Italy. What's going on with the Ferrari engine? Why was Cadillac's debut surrounded by tension? And what exactly did Perez mean when he said, "It lit a fire in me, but there's a lot we need to fix"? The answers are what the press release said. And if the rumors are true, this wasn't a test. It was a warning. It was just after 8 a.m. Silverstone was gray, wet, and brutally cold. No cameras, no crowd, just one car, entirely black, tucked deep inside the garage. The name on the timing sheet? Checo Perez. But this wasn't Red Bull. This wasn't even a known team. This was Cadillac, a brand new project, backed by General Motors, managed through Andretti, and powered, curiously, by a Ferrari engine built for 2026. This was supposed to be a systems check, a short run, a handful of installation laps just to get the electronics talking. But something didn't feel right. The engine fire-up was delayed, longer than anyone had expected. Whispers in the paddock suggested calibration issues. Others said the energy recovery system had locked out the throttle map. And Checo? He waited, helmet on, sitting in a car that wouldn't start, watching engineers quietly gather around the rear end again and again, without speaking to him. When the car finally rolled out, there was no cheering, just the sound of wet tires cutting through a cold British morning, and a power unit that sounded different. Not broken, but not smooth. And that was only the beginning. Because what happened after those first laps, what Checo said and what Cadillac didn't say, was far more revealing than the test itself. The official story was simple. Cadillac completed a successful filming day. Checo Perez ran a few laps. Data was collected, no issues reported. But that version doesn't hold up under scrutiny, because multiple sources, including personnel close to the test, confirmed there were problems. And they started before the car ever left the garage. The initial delay, not weather, not logistics, it was the engine. Specifically, the interface between the Ferrari 2026 power unit and Cadillac's internal control system. Telemetry wouldn't sync, ERS wouldn't deploy, throttle mapping failed its first test, twice. Now, that might not sound like a crisis. This was, after all, the first live rollout of a brand new car. But here's the catch. This wasn't supposed to happen, because this wasn't Cadillac's power unit. It was Ferrari's. The same unit that had already fired up successfully in Maranello that same morning. So why did it misfire at Silverstone? Why did it take nearly 40 minutes to reach basic operational status? And why, when asked about it later, did no one from Cadillac or Ferrari give a clear explanation? Checo's post-run interview didn't help. He smiled. He was polite. But his words, measured, filtered, and right at the end, almost lost in noise, he said something strange. There's potential here, but it's not ready. Not ready. After months of private development. After months of secrecy. That's the first sign that something's off. And inside the paddock, when the driver's words don't match the press release, that's where the real story begins. At face value, the issue looked technical. Throttle sync problems, energy deployment mismatches. A rough start, nothing too unusual for a first shakedown. But what makes this different is who's involved. Because this wasn't just Cadillac testing a new car. This was General Motors, the largest automaker in North America, running their debut Formula One prototype, powered by a Ferrari engine they don't fully control. Let that sink in. A US powerhouse, backed by billions, representing America's entry into the elite circle of F1 constructors, running hardware built in Maranello. And here's the twist. Sources suggest the delay at Silverstone wasn't purely a hardware issue. It was a communication breakdown between Ferrari's engine calibration protocols and Cadillac's control unit architecture. Two systems, two philosophies, two companies with completely different priorities. Ferrari builds for itself. Cadillac needs flexibility. And in that cold, quiet garage, those differences finally collided. Checo may have been the one in the cockpit, But the real battle was happening between two laptops and two engineering teams trying to speak the same language, but through different translators. And that's not just a one-day problem, because this engine isn't a placeholder. It's Ferrari's 2026 architecture, the same one they'll run in Maranello. So when it doesn't behave inside the Cadillac chassis, the implications go both ways. For GM, it raises questions of autonomy. For Ferrari, it raises questions of control. And for both, it raises the stakes. Because if this partnership can't function under light testing pressure, how is it supposed to survive a full race weekend? You'd think a moment like this would have made headlines. Checo Perez, an American-backed F1 car, a Ferrari engine running publicly for the first time under 2026 specifications. But the response was silence. No press statement from Cadillac, no technical commentary from Ferrari, not even a formal acknowledgement from the FIA, despite being fully briefed on the test. And that tells you everything, because when things go well in Formula One, teams talk, they publish, they celebrate, but when things go sideways, and a political situation starts brewing underneath the data, everyone goes quiet. What no one is publicly explaining is why this test, which had been months in the making, was allowed to proceed with unresolved software issues. Why did Ferrari approve the deployment of an engine into a customer car when the communication layer wasn't ready? And on the flip side, why did Cadillac move forward with a chassis installation before full telemetry integration had been verified? Some in the paddock believe it wasn't a miscalculation. It was pressure. Cadillac needed to show proof of progress. The FIA has been hesitant to approve their 2026 entry, and after months of political resistance from rival teams, this test was their first real public statement. They couldn't delay it, not without feeding the narrative that they weren't ready. So they rolled the car out, even if the engine didn't want to play nice. But what's really being whispered now, in meeting rooms, simulator centers, and across encrypted emails, isn't about the failed sync. It's about what happens next. Because if Ferrari's engine only works inside a Ferrari shell, then what does that mean for Cadillac? For Haas? For every team depending on Maranello in 2026? What started as a rough test in wet conditions might have just exposed a bigger structural issue. And no one, not the FIA, not Ferrari, not General Motors, wants to explain it out loud. The Silverstone test wasn't just about data. It was about optics. It was about control. And now it's about consequences. Because if the Cadillac-Ferrari interface is already showing strain, before preseason testing, before long runs, before any true race simulation, then the next steps are far more complicated than just fixing the software. This isn't a Red Bull-Honda relationship. This isn't Mercedes supplying a known partner. This is General Motors, a company not used to playing the junior role, working with a supplier that answers only to itself. And now, the trust between them has taken its first hit. What does that mean? For Cadillac, they now have to walk a fine line, publicly showing confidence, while privately trying to understand how much control they actually have over their own car. For Ferrari, it forces a different kind of reflection, because if the same engine that ran flawlessly in Maranello starts showing issues in another team's hands, they can't just blame the customer. Not in 2026, when energy deployment, software precision, and chassis integration are inseparable. And here's the deeper problem. Every other Ferrari-powered team is watching. Haas, maybe even future technical partners. And if Cadillac struggles again in the next outing, it reflects upstream, directly back to Maranello. The risk here isn't just embarrassment, it's exposure. Because for years, Ferrari's engine department has operated under a cloud of secrecy. From 2019's fuel flow controversy, to post-penalty development restrictions, to their quiet rise in late 2023. Now, with a major public customer in GM, that secrecy is cracking. The engine has to work, not just inside a Ferrari, but inside someone else's concept, with someone else's tools, someone else's culture. And if it doesn't, then it's not just Cadillac's problem. It's a structural issue, and it puts Ferrari's entire 2026 campaign, with Hamilton, with Leclerc, at risk of being compromised before it even begins. This wasn't supposed to be a pressure test, but it was, and now the fallout begins. So now the world knows. Cadillac has tested. The engine is real. Checo drove it, and the car ran eventually. But what comes next isn't another test. It's a response. Because in Formula One, once the curtain is pulled back, even slightly, everyone starts asking questions. How deep do the Ferrari Cadillac integration issues really go? What happens the next time the car fires up? Will the telemetry sync? Will the hybrid system cooperate? And more importantly, who's really in charge of fixing it? Because Ferrari's engine team has one priority: winning with Ferrari. Not Cadillac, not GM, not Andretti, and Cadillac. They're building their F1 future around this architecture. They don't have time to wait for permission. They need control. And here's where it gets dangerous. If this partnership fractures, even slightly, it sends a message to every other potential engine customer watching from the outside. It says, you can use Ferrari's power, but only on Ferrari's terms. That could ripple through the sport, into how future supplier deals are written, into how the FIA views engine customer rights in 2026, and into how the balance of technical power is negotiated behind closed doors. And Checo, he's in the middle of it, a veteran driver, driving a car no one expected to see on track this early, and leaving that garage knowing what worked and what didn't. His next test could define Cadillac's season, or end it before it starts, because this wasn't just a filming day, it was a stress test. And now that the engine has spoken, everyone is listening, but no one knows what it will say next.